Ambassador Kith of the Zark's Confederation suppressed a mandible twitch as he descended the crystalline ramp of his ship, the gesture equivalent to an eye roll among his species. It would have been diplomatically unfortunate during humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization, but Kith couldn't help himself. The honor guard assembled before him carried what his scanners identified as chemically propelled projectile weapons, essentially refined versions of the black powder weapons his own species had abandoned millennia ago. "Welcome to Earth," a distinguished-looking human in what appeared to be ceremonial attire stepped forward. "I'm Secretary General Chen of the United Nations." Kith performed the traditional greeting gesture of his people, extending his secondary arms while keeping his primary ones crossed. "Your hospitality honors us, Secretary General. The Zark's Confederation looks forward to guiding your species into the galactic community." Kith noted with satisfaction how the human's smile tightened slightly at the word guiding. Good, they understood their place. 2 hours later, during the mandatory weapons inspection protocols, a standard procedure for all first contact scenarios, Kith's initial amusement had evolved into something approaching pity. Their most advanced military vessels still relied on chemical propulsion for their main weapons. No plasma cannons, no quantum disruptors, not even basic particle beam technology. And this, the human military attaché proudly displayed on a holoscreen, was the U.S. Constantine, equipped with our newest defensive systems. Kith studied the specifications with what he hoped looked like diplomatic interest. The ship's main armament appeared to be, he double-checked his translator to make sure it wasn't malfunctioning, missiles. Chemical rockets designed to explode. How quaint, Kith lied smoothly. Most impressive. Though perhaps, in time, we might assist you in developing more contemporary weapon systems. Meanwhile, in a secure facility 3 kilometers beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Jessica Barnes was having a much more interesting conversation. "Run it again," she ordered, watching as the test chamber's reinforced wall absorbed another impact. The foot-thick tungsten carbide plate they were using as a target now sported a hole clean through its center, edges still glowing cherry red. "Mark 6 prototype performing within expected parameters, Doctor," her assistant reported. "Muzzle velocity holding steady at 30 kilometers per second." Barnes allowed herself a small smile as she reviewed the data. The Confederation ships, according to their freely shared technical specifications, relied heavily on energy-dispersing shields. Shields that had been optimized over centuries to defend against laser fire, plasma bursts, and particle beams. Shields that, technically speaking, wouldn't do jack against several kilograms of tungsten moving at a significant fraction of light speed. "Package the test results for the Joint Chiefs," she said, already mentally composing her report. "Classified timeline only. Let's keep this one in our back pocket for now." Her assistant paused. "The aliens are up there right now, basically calling us primitive. Shouldn't we show them everything we've got?" Barnes shook her head. "Remember what Suna said about appearing weak when you are strong." Besides, she patted the Railguns housing affectionately. "The ambassador's probably up there right now, writing reports about how we're centuries behind them technologically. Let's not spoil this day." As if to prove her point, at that exact moment, Ambassador Kith was indeed composing his initial report to the Confederation High Council. The species designating themselves as humans appear to be at a pre-spacefaring, military technological level, despite having achieved limited solar system colonization. Their weapons technology remains firmly in the chemical propulsion age. While they show remarkable adaptability and some creative approaches to engineering, they pose no significant military concern. Recommendation: classify as a Category 3 protectorate species. Begin standard technological uplift protocols at earliest convenience. Note their particularly primitive approach to weaponry may require several centuries of guided development before they achieve minimum Confederation standards. Kith added a personal note: "These humans seem pleasant enough, if somewhat overconfident given their technological limitations. Still, I believe they will make excellent junior members of the Confederation once they've been properly civilized." Dr. Barnes would have appreciated the irony had she been able to read it. Instead, she focused on reviewing the day's test data, particularly the part where their primitive weapon had just punched through a material rated to withstand direct hits from Confederation plasma cannons. Some limitations, she mused, were entirely in the eye of the beholder. Captain Bexel of the Proxima Raiders leaned back in his command chair, all four eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. His mandibles clicked in what his crew recognized as their leader's hunting gesture. "Confirmed that intercept again," he ordered, voice gravel with anticipation. "Confirmed, Captain," his sensor officer reported. "Human colony transport designation Valley Forge, carrying terraform equipment and supplies to their Mars colony. Minimal defensive capabilities. One escort vessel, the Constantine." Bexel's secondary eyes narrowed as he reviewed the Confederation intelligence reports on human military vessels. The Constantine, a so-called battleship that still relied on chemical propulsion for its weapons. The thought almost made him laugh. "Show me the escort's weapons profile," he commanded. The ram shifted, displaying the Constantine's specifications. No energy weapons, no particle accelerators, just what appeared to be missile tubes and some unusual power signatures his sensors couldn't quite identify. "Send the standard warning," Bexel ordered, mandibles now clicking in amusement. "Let's see how quickly these primitives surrender when faced with real weapons." Aboard the USS Constantine, Lieutenant Commander Mike O'Reilly received the Raiders' transmission with what his crew had come to recognize as his poker face. 8 years as a championship player in Vegas before joining the Navy had given him an excellent ability to mask his emotions. "Chief Thompson," he called out, "how's our little surprise package?" Ashley Thompson, hunched over her weapons console, didn't look up as she continued her calculations. "Mark 7 is hot and ready, sir. Just say the word, and I'll show these bugs what a girl from Texas can do with a proper throwing arm." O'Reilly nodded, watching the Raider vessels approach on his tactical display. 3 ships, arrayed in standard attack formation, their energy shields sparkling with iridescent power. Beautiful, really, if you didn't know what they were for. "Message from the Valley Forge, sir," his communications officer reported. "They're requesting permission to record this for their ship's log." O'Reilly allowed himself a small smile. The colony ship's captain was an old friend who'd been briefed on what was about to happen. "Tell them to make sure they get our good side," he replied. The Raiders were now broadcasting their demands, their translator making their contempt clear. "Primitive vessels, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your technological inferiority makes resistance futile. We have already disabled your primitive communication systems." Thompson snorted. They hadn't actually disabled anything. O'Reilly had simply ordered radio silence, letting them think their advanced technology had worked. "Range to target?" O'Reilly asked quietly. "Coming into optimal range now, sir," Thompson replied, her Texas drawl more pronounced as it always was before a fight. O'Reilly considered this. Protocol suggested they should give a warning shot. Then again, these were the same Raiders who had hit 3 colony ships in the past month. "Chief Thompson," he said, "when you went fishing as a kid, did you warn the fish?" Thompson's grin was audible in her voice. "No, sir. Can't say that I did." "Then I don't see why we should warn these pirates," O'Reilly concluded. "Weapons free, Chief. Show them what humanity's been working on." Thompson's fingers flew across her console, making final adjustments. The Mark 6 railgun system, hidden behind false panels that made it look like a standard missile tube, hummed to life. The Raiders, still broadcasting their threats, didn't even notice the power spike. "Target locked," Thompson announced. "Ready to ruin someone's whole day, sir." O'Reilly waited until the Raiders were perfectly positioned, their formation presenting the flagship's broadside exactly where Thompson wanted them. "Send it," he ordered. The Constantine shuddered slightly as the railgun fired. On the tactical display, a depleted uranium slug the size of a soda can crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. There was no beam of light, no dramatic energy burst, just physics applied with extreme prejudice. The Raiders' flagship didn't even have time to register the attack. One moment it was there, its energy shields glowing proudly, The next, a hypersonic projectile moving at 30 kilometers per second had converted those impressive shields into so much useless sparkle. The slug passed through the ship's hull like tissue paper, its kinetic energy turning the proud raider vessel into an expanding cloud of very surprised atoms. "Key the Valley Forge," O'Reilly said. "I hope you got that on camera." He turned to Thompson. "Chief, let's show their friends what else we've got in our primitive little arsenal." The remaining raiders were already turning to flee. They wouldn't be fast enough. The two remaining raider vessels broke formation with a speed that would have been impressive if it hadn't been so panicked. Their sensor officers were screaming reports in 3 different languages, none of which had words to properly describe what they'd just witnessed. "Impossible!" Captain Crilly of the support vessel Swift Death shrieked into the fleecom. "Their weapons are chemical-based," the Confederation reports confirmed. "Forget the reports," the third ship's captain cut in, his transmission cutting off as another round from the Constantine turned his vessel into an expanding debris field. "Did you see what happened to the flagship? Energy shields didn't even register the hit." "How are they?" Ashley Thompson allowed herself a small yaw as she adjusted her targeting solution. "Last bug trying to scurry behind that asteroid field, sir. Want me to wait until they think they're safe?" O'Reilly watched the tactical display, where the final raider vessel was indeed making the desperate break for the asteroid belt. "Now, Chief," he paused for dramatic effect. "That would just be cruel." "I like it." Aboard the Swift Death, Crilly was reaching new octaves of panic. "Emergency transmission to all raider vessels," he shrieked. "Humans have developed some kind of," he struggled to find the words, "some kind of super weapon. Avoid all contact, repeat. Avoid." Thompson's third shot ended his broadcast mid-warning. The round caught the Swift Death just as it reached the asteroid field's edge, transforming ship and several nearby space rocks into a brief, brilliant exhibition of applied physics. "Clean sweep," Thompson reported, already running diagnostics on the Mark 7. Nominal temperature, capacitors at 82% and recharging. System performed better than the simulations predicted. O'Reilly nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the pride swelling in his chest. "Send word to the Valley Forge that they can resume course to Mars. Then get me a secure channel to command. They'll want a full report on our first field test." "Already composing my after-action report, sir," Thompson said, then added with a grin, "Think I should include the part where their shields didn't even have time to detect the incoming rounds?" "Oh, definitely include that part," O'Reilly replied. "And make sure to mention priority transmission from command, sir," the communications officer interrupted. "Dr. Barnes is online. She's requesting immediate data from the Mark VI's performance metrics." In her underground facility, Jessica Barnes was already poring over the incoming numbers, her excitement barely contained. 30 kilometers per second. Shield penetration, exactly as predicted. Minimal barrel degradation. She looked up at her team. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we just proved the concept. Get me everything you can from the Constantine sensors. I want a full breakdown of how those Confederation-grade shields failed." Back on the Constantine, O'Reilly was wrapping up his preliminary report when Thompson spoke up again. "Sir, you might want to see this. Our long-range sensors are picking up substantial communication activity from the direction of the Confederation Embassy." O'Reilly smiled. "I imagine quite a few people are having very interesting conversations right now." He was right. In the Confederation Embassy, Ambassador Kith was trying to make sense of the reports flooding his quantum comm terminal. The prestigious Proxima Raiders, the terror of 3 star systems, had just been eliminated by. His mandibles practically tied themselves in knots as he struggled to process it. "Get me everything we have on human railing technology," he barked at his science attaché. "And find out why nobody mentioned this in the first contact briefings." The attaché responded hesitantly. "Sir, according to our databases, railguns are a technological dead end. The energy requirements alone make them impractical for space combat, and the acceleration would tear the projectile apart before." "Does this look like a technological dead end to you?" Kith gestured wildly at the sensor readings. They had just turned 3 ships with Confederation-grade shields into cosmic dust with what they had dismissed as a primitive weapon. As the ambassador worked himself into what would later be described as a diplomatic frenzy, Dr. Barnes was already meeting with the Joint Chiefs, her presentation titled simply, Project Thunderbolt, Results of First Combat Test. Her opening line would be quoted in military academies for decades to come. Ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that when you throw something hard enough, even the most advanced shields in the galaxy can't argue with physics. The age of human railgun supremacy had begun. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. The Zark's Confederation Science Council's emergency session was called within hours of the Proxima Raider incident. The chamber, normally a model of dignified scientific discourse, had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the destruction of the Raider vessels from multiple angles, each replay causing new outbursts of disbelief. Dr. Robert Mad Dog Murphy strode into this maelstrom with the confident grin of a man who'd spent his career being told his ideas were impossible. The nickname earned during his college years for his habit of pursuing insane, theoretical weapons concepts had never felt more appropriate. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of nonspecific gender designation, he began, adjusting his worn leather jacket, a deliberate fashion choice that made several council members visibly uncomfortable. I'm here to explain why you're all wrong about kinetic weapons. A Zark's physicist rose, multiple arms gesturing in agitation. Wrong? Our civilization abandoned kinetic weapons millennia ago. The energy requirements alone are completely reasonable, Murphy interrupted, pulling up his own holographic display. If you stop thinking like energy weapon designers. Let's do some basic math. Who here can tell me what 1/2 mass times velocity squared means? The chamber fell silent. Finally, a junior researcher spoke up. It's the kinetic energy formula. Basic physics. Gold star. Murphy's grin widened. Now, let's plug in some numbers. Our Mark 6 railgun, and yes, that's the small one, fires a 10-kilogram projectile at 30 kilometers per second. How much kinetic energy is in that round? Fingers flew across data pads as the council members ran the calculations. Gasps of astonishment filled the room as the results appeared on the central display. 64 gigajoules, the junior researcher announced, eyes wide. That's an astronomical amount of energy. And that's just the small one, Murphy said, waggling his eyebrows. Imagine what our big guns can do. The Zark's physicist sank back into his chair, mandibles quivering. But our shields are designed to dissipate that kind of energy. How did they? Murphy leaned forward, his grin turning predatory. You see, that's the beauty of kinetic weapons. Your fancy shields? They're meant to stop energy, not physical objects moving at a significant fraction of light speed. When you throw something hard enough, even the most advanced technology in the galaxy can't argue with physics. The chamber descended into stunned silence, the implications of this revelation slowly dawning on the gathered scientists. The Proxima Raiders had been obliterated, their Confederation-grade shields rendered utterly useless against the humans' primitive railguns. Ambassador Kith, who had been observing the proceedings with a growing sense of dread, finally spoke up. Gentlemen, I believe we have a problem. While the Zark's Confederation Science Council grappled with the unsettling implications of the Proxima Raider incident, Dr. Jessica Barnes was meeting with the Joint Chiefs, her presentation titled simply, Project Thunderbolt, Results of First Combat Test. The room fell silent as she took the podium, her expression a mixture of pride and resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, it turns out that when you throw something hard enough, even the most advanced shields in the galaxy can't argue with physics. Barnes clicked to the first slide, displaying the schematics and performance data of the Mark 6 railgun. As you know, our research team has been working on a revolutionary new weapon system, one that takes the basic principles of kinetic energy and applies them at hypersonic velocities. The result is a rail-based artillery piece capable of delivering devastating, pinpoint-accurate firepower at ranges that render traditional missile and energy-based weapons virtually obsolete. She paused, letting the implications sink in. In our most recent field test, a single round from the Mark 6 was able to punch straight through the energy shields of a Confederation capital ship, reducing it to a cloud of superheated plasma. That, gentlemen, is the power of Project Thunderbolt. One of the Joint Chiefs, a grizzled veteran with more medals than buttons on his uniform, leaned forward. So these aliens, the Zarks, was it? They have no defense against this kind of technology. Barnes shook her head. None that we've been able to identify. Their shields, while incredibly advanced, are designed to dissipate energy-based attacks, not physical projectiles moving at fractions of the speed of light. As far as we can tell, their only recourse would be to try and intercept the rounds in flight, which is an almost impossibly difficult task given the velocities we're talking about. The veteran nodded, a grim smile spreading across his face. Sounds like we've got ourselves a technological ace in the hole, then. Well done, Doctor. I'll make sure this gets fast-tracked straight to production. Barnes felt a surge of pride. Thank you, sir. I can assure you, this is just the beginning. Our team is already working on next-generation designs that will make the Mark VI look like a child's toy. As the meeting adjourned, Barnes couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The Zarks Confederation had clearly underestimated humanity's technological capabilities, and now they were about to get a rude awakening. She could only imagine the chaos unfolding in their diplomatic circles as they scrambled to comprehend the implications of the Proxima Raider incident. Little did she know, her assessment was entirely accurate. While the Zarks Confederation Science Council grappled with the unsettling implications of the Proxima Raider incident, the ramifications were already rippling through the highest levels of the galactic community. Ambassador Kith, his mandibles still twitching with a mix of disbelief and dread, had immediately convened an emergency session with the Confederation High Council. The prestigious body, accustomed to wielding overwhelming technological and military might, now found themselves confronted with a stark reality. Their assumptions about the primitive human species had been gravely mistaken. Gentlemen, Kith began, his voice uncharacteristically shaky, I believe we have a situation of the utmost gravity. He proceeded to relay the grim details of the Proxima Raider's annihilation, punctuating his report with the damning sensor data that had been transmitted from the doomed vessels. The council chamber descended into a maelstrom of frantic debate, with delegates from across the Confederation voicing their shock and alarm. How could such a technologically backward species possess weaponry capable of effortlessly penetrating their vaunted energy shields? What other hidden capabilities might these humans possess? This is unacceptable, thundered Counselor Grath, his upper mandibles flaring in outrage. We must take immediate action to neutralize this threat before it spreads. I propose a full-scale military intervention to subjugate these humans and bring them under our control. Kith raised a placating hand, struggling to maintain his composure. Counselor, I must caution against such a rash course of action. Our intelligence on human military capabilities is clearly incomplete, and a direct confrontation could have catastrophic consequences. We must tread carefully, lest we underestimate them once again. The debate raged on for hours, with the council members torn between their instinct to assert Confederation dominance and the unsettling realization that their technological superiority may no longer be assured. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Jessica Barnes was already looking towards the future, her mind racing with the implications of Project Thunderbolt. Gentlemen, she addressed the Joint Chiefs with a steely resolve, the age of human railgun supremacy has begun. The galaxy just doesn't know it yet. She paused, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. But they're about to find out. As the Zarks Confederation struggled to come to terms with this new reality, the stage was set for a profound shift in the balance of power within the galactic community. The future held untold possibilities as humanity embraced its ability to defy the assumptions and expectations of its alien counterparts. The era of human technological dominance had dawned, and the cosmos would never be the same.